Hello, our presentation today is what do you mean incorporating soft skills in the teaching environment? My name is Dr. Ashley Leininger, and the objectives today were at the end of the presentation, participants will examine what are considered soft skills in industry, learn about the different methods and tools to capitalize on student engagement and learning, and finally discover ways to implement different skills into your own courses. Go ahead, Jennifer. So what are soft skills? Soft skills are any of those skills that we use and are conducive within the workspace. Generally, we learn them through working with others in the work environment. We learn them through classroom activities, cooperative activities, things that are like critical thinking skills, thinking outside the box, time management skills. We learn leadership skills. We learn whether or not, how to approach people. We learn of different types of empathy within the workplace and how to be more open-minded and flexible in our time, as well as the information that we can provide others to really be the cooperative individuals that we want to be within the workplace itself. This is why we also make sure that when we educate our students, we make sure that they have some of the work skills and these soft skills and able to succeed outside of the classroom itself. Go ahead, Jennifer. So one of the, how do we add them? Well, we have to be creative. We have to think outside the box. We have to think outside what we usually would do. In an online environment, it can be difficult and it can seem insurmountable in order to get these soft skills in the classroom. How do we teach people to be cooperative without necessarily a group activity or a group project? How do we teach skills without being hands-on, without saying, hey, we're all going to meet at this time, or let's meet in person? It's very difficult to do in an online classroom. So we have to really think outside the box here. It's not easy to teach skills that come as second nature to many of us. Some of us, we don't know how to look at people. I have to make sure to school my face a lot because sometimes I just kind of like, and I make the weirdest faces when I don't understand something. And people can take it online as very different, as maybe aggressive, maybe confused, maybe not understanding, when I'm just going through it in my own mind and trying to figure out exactly what I want to say and form that in a way that doesn't come off too concise, too blunt, too rude, too aggressive, or that I don't know what I'm talking about a lot of the time. So it's not easy to teach some of the skills that are easy for some people. Others find skills they are teaching, they have not mastered themselves. I try to master empathy. I empathize a lot with the students, but I'm not a very squishy, happy, cuddly individual all of the time. I am very blunt and concise, so I have to be careful trying to teach the skills of empathy that I've not necessarily mastered myself. And we add them by working with what we can do in our own field, to look at the evidence, to look at the information that we want to teach. I'm not necessarily going to be teaching history. I am not a historian. I am a sociologist and a psychologist, not a historian. So I'm not going to lean into history in order to teach individuals time management skills, right? Instead, I'm going to focus on the sociological imagination. I'm going to focus on looking, outside of their own bias, their own worldview, in order to teach some of these skills. And we need to be able to use technology that is available to us, as well as understand how to use the technology ethically and responsibly too. And we're able to do that by instilling on others and teaching them some of these tools that we may be able to use. Online platforms, ChatGPT or Google Notebook, things like that. We also have skills like learning Excel or being able to maybe you use Padlet for information or note taking, and to be able to impart that on our students as well. And we use different approaches really to feel out the subject matter and what the audience or student makeup will be. It's not going to be the same way for each student that we have. It's going to be very different, and it's going to vary by the class. I teach a variety of classes from um, data literacy to intro to sociology to social problems to gender and society. And each student population within each of these classes each term is very different. You might have a huge amount of people in the military. You're going to teach something in a very different way to resonate with that individual. Those soft skills will be different and be approached differently with those. Next slide, please. So an example to teach cooperation and critical thinking that I have done for my data literacy class. It's one of the classes that is one of the first classes that individuals take in our information technology course line. And many students are actually in that class to seek a change, to maybe a transition to more of a civilian life from military life, and are looking for a remote work environment. So this is the population that I'm working with. But we still have to be able to teach cooperation and critical thinking skills without necessarily having these arduous group projects. We have found that students don't necessarily like group projects. Some of them will complete the project without working with others and back and forth and all of that stuff. So one student actually reflected me that it was easy one for flexibility of hours and one of those programs that remain remote over time. And they're looking for the remote access, but you still need to be able to talk to people. You still need to be able to engage with people you work with. And you still need to be able to cooperate with them to find a solution. So what I did was I implemented a different soft skill activity of cooperation and critical thinking. Next slide, please. And this one was actually a cooperative discussion. I implemented it in for 4 different discussion posts. So what it is I provided them a discussion board and said, hey, this will be a continuous discussion board. I'm going to give you a problem, and you folks are going to work through it together to find a solution. It's going to be a continuous conversation. Now, this has gone over extremely well with the students. We did have some that had some issues with not necessarily agreeing with other people, but that's what we want. Because in the end, it's like, okay, we're trying to find an end solution. Why is this a problem? How can we fix it? And what are some of the core key outcomes that we have here? So I gave them these rules at the beginning. I was like, okay, it's going to be continuous and you're going to solve a problem. So you're going to read the problem that I'm going to put up here. And I switch these out randomly as well. Reflect upon the problem. So you read the problem first, reflect upon what you would do with a situation, right? And then you're going to reply in this conversation. You're going to have a conversation with others. Say, hey, this is my solution to the problem. I've noticed that you had a different solution. For example, one solution I had was to be more transparent over the question, to provide this data for these individuals. And another person said, if you provide all the data, then, really, how are you gathering the study that you need? How are you gathering the data and information that you need? And I told them, you reply and you contribute by posting throughout the conversation, adding in basically your 2 cents, right? And make sure that it's referenced, make sure that, you're pulling on course information to do that. Next slide, please. And so this was one of the first problems that I put up here was, how to counter misinformation in community, right? And so the students were given the scenario that it was a nonprofit organization and it had a new initiative to improve the food security in an underserved community. Okay. They wanted to add community gardens, workshops, sustainable eating, and access to fresh and affordable produce. But the initiative was facing resistance because it was the rapid spread of online misinformation, right? We've heard this, it's a buzzword, the online misinformation, right? Like false claims that the safety of the produce wasn't actually safe. It wasn't what they were saying it was. That, it wasn't necessarily organic, that pesticides were used, that, it's the front for a big corporation in order to establish within the community something that they could get their hands on later, right? There are distorted facts, right? And so the misinformation was amplified through these social media groups. And so it made it less reputable. Um, Online news outlets used it, right? So it eroded this public trust, right? And participation within this program. And they were trying to figure out what we should do. So the challenge I gave them was, look at it and virtually address the issue. The goal was to identify, analyze, and strategically counter the online misinformation. How do you do it? What do you do? So the students actually worked together to come up with a solution. And their solution was, okay, be more transparent, give workshops where they see, they can have access to the farms to see how the farmers were getting the produce, that they could work in the community garden, that they could get the information of what pesticides were used, that they could, be listed out and given all this information, and then have other people who have tried it give their own testimonies of what was done well or what was not done well. And it worked really well to teach this skill of cooperation as well as critical thinking of, hey, what is a solution that hasn't been looked at already? So this is a soft skill that many people come into the job market with, saying, hey, I can, work with others well. I can adjust my timelines. I can adjust, for a different solution and be more open-minded about those things. Next slide, please. And another type to teach soft skill was to do learn more through a generative essay with a critique. So again, critical thinking skills, but showing them how to use AI in a good way, right? In an ethical way, to produce an essay, and then they could critique it. They would analyze what the AI essay gave them and say, oh, are the references good? Can I follow the references back? What does it have right? What does it not have right? So they're critically looking at what that information is given to them through AI. And then they're saying, okay, this is an essay that may, not be, there are some ethical challenges here, that what can AI do and AI cannot do? How do I learn how to work with this? So then they're learning different tools as well, in order to work within their own field, tools that are not going away, right? So then they check their references and they go back and they do their own research. So it's more of taking the technology we have today and making the students go back and look at it and critique it and understand it, and then reflect on it too, to give them a way to reflect on it and say, where is it going from here? Now that I have this information, I can reflect and I can adjust, and make it work for me ethically, right? And then the next slide. So in order to even figure out or even teach different tools and these different soft skills, understanding that there is things out there, that there is Notebook and Gemini that can outline the readings, right? We can provide tools to teach better studying, right? Better time management. All these soft skills that you don't necessarily see in the industry. We can teach from the book, but we don't necessarily teach how it will be interacting in the outside. But this is a way to do it. It's best to work with technology and not against it, okay? Because technology is going to be there. Students are going to use it. And if we can teach them how to use it right, it works out better, from my experience at least. And then, you can create these different notebooks and share with your students. So then they have a way to better time manage, to learn to skim information, to get all the crust of the information, right? All the body of it, right? You can provide flashcards, mind maps, explanations of material. And other people are experimenting with different games to enhance the critical thinking skills, to work with others, to kind of have little contests, to be able to say, hey, you're wrong, but that's not a bad thing. To say, hey, this doesn't really make sense, but here's a reference that can help you see more of where this can come from. So helps with the open-mindedness. All right, next slide for my references, and then I will hand it over to Jennifer.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Jennifer Castledine-Brock. I'm a faculty at Purdue Global in the MAPS department, but humanities is my specialization. I teach courses, ethics, critical thinking, humanities and culture, social justice and sustainability. So those are some of the classes I teach, and I am trying to build soft skills as well into the classroom. So one of the things I'm using are the principles of deliberative democracy, and how can we use that to teach ethics, to teach social justice and the humanities and things like that, but also build in those communication skills, which can be a little bit tricky in an online environment for oral communication, for example, and keep adding to those critical thinking skills. So, what is a deliberative democracy? I'll share this definition according to Peter Levine. Citizens participate meaningfully in decisions that affect them rather than simply receiving instructions from authorities. And so, our seminars at Purdue Global, they're optional. Students can attend, but if it interferes with their work, they can watch a recording and take a quiz. I want my students to attend if they can, right? So one of the things I have found is I generally get better attendance if I tell students, this is not my seminar. This is our seminar. How are we going to build it? And so I do for week one, I just go over this is what you're getting yourselves into in an ethics class, yeah, basically, and we go over some of that. But then the next week in week two, I say, okay, y'all, this is our seminar. How are we going to organize it? And how are you going to take a bit of a decision making role in determining what to include in the seminar? Now, I say we still got to meet the objectives of the seminar. We can't go off the rails, but we can do it in ways that you find engaging. And one of the questions I've added just this semester, my Google forms always change. What is something we could do to make this seminar more impactful? And so I hope that gives students genuine agency over this part of their educational experience, and that by having that agency and being invested in creation to a point, that they are more engaged throughout the semester. Okay, so the soft skills learned will be communication. We do Zoom breakout sessions where they communicate with one another in those small groups and then come back. And I say, I pick a name from group one, group two, group three. What did your group discuss? And if they said, oh, and a few of us had different opinions, I'll say, okay, and, listen, and who wants to share the other opinion, right? And one thing I've noticed, if I ask a big group, what do you think about this? There can be silence, like a long silence, like I'm waiting, I'm patiently pausing. But if you put them in small groups, they're often more likely to start talking. Now, some groups are more talkative than others. So sometimes I'll peek in, and if there's not a lot of conversation, I'll start asking some questions as well. And I tell students, hey, you're here to learn, you're here to gain skills, most of you for a professional and your personal life, and communication is an important part of that, and talking to people that have different ideas about different, even in ethics, controversial issues, that helps build the skill. It's to your advantage to do that. Critical thinking is great, because I've had students say to other students, okay, well, I hear your claim, that doesn't sound quite right to me, but I'm open-minded. Can you provide research? And I had, one case where a student said, oops, no, I cannot. It turns out I was wrong, right? Okay, great. That's great critical thinking. That actually makes me happy. And then perspective taking, really understanding that these people that are kind to you, that are your colleagues in a way, your fellow students, understanding that we can have different perspectives, but there can be sometimes some pretty good reasons for those different perspectives. And I think the conversation helps with that, and it also helps to build their essays, right? If you can kind of try out your thoughts in a discussion board, and then you kind of really throw them out there in oral communication in a Zoom breakout session, then it will help you with developing that argument later on as well. So there are, of course, I'm sure, different ways of incorporating the principles of deliberative democracy into the classroom. I was thinking, okay, my class is wholly online, is fully online. How do I the seminars are optional, right? How do I do this? So, how it started out was pretty slow. I just like, hey, y'all, I don't want to throw Zoom breakout sessions on you, but I think this would be a great chance to talk to one another, to make it so it's not just some, instructor lecturing from a PowerPoint file. Who wants that, right? And how are we going to do this? And so the approach provided a good opportunity to ask students how they wanted to structure the seminar within those parameters of that of the seminar objectives. So here are some questions, and I've added to this since I put these slides in. But I say, would you like to have a Zoom breakout sessions in the seminars, right? And I've had two classes that did not, but most classes do. And then yes, no, or sometimes, right? And one of the things I'm going to do, I'll talk about this in a moment. If you answered yes or sometimes, how long would you like the Zoom sessions to be? 5 minutes, 7 minutes, or other? And a lot of times it starts out at 5 or 7 minutes, but then it's increasing. I had some evaluations last term that said, oh, I wish the Zoom breakout sessions were longer. So in my deliberative democracy mind, I'm like, yeah, I asked them in week 2, how long do you want the Zoom sessions to be before they'd done any? So now this semester, I told them I'll add in week 4 or 5. Should we change anything, right? What should we change just in case if people do want them longer, then we can keep them longer. And if somebody's adamant, I do not like the Zoom breakout sessions, I said, all right, well, you can use like that 5 or 7 minutes or whatever we're doing to study, or let them go to their breakout sessions, and I'll be happy just to have a conversation with you. That's fine, right? You're not obligated to do that. And some folks have said, oh, thank you, but then they seem to kind of have fun, some of them in the Zoom sessions. Would you like for students to be able to submit Zoom breakout session questions a few days before the seminar? Yes or no? And students say yes. They don't always do it, but I get a couple emails. I've had students say, hey, Jennifer, can we talk about, I had one horse insemination in the animal ethics section, which I would have never thought of that on my own, but they gave me some information. We put it in the PowerPoints, and we said, hey, here's an example of a real life issue in animal ethics that a student does know about. We talked a little bit about that, right? So yes, bring me your questions. If you have articles that you're like, wow, this relates to that, we can talk about it. And then I say, do you want the same groups throughout the semester, or would you like to change groups from time to time? And most folks like to change groups, but each class is a bit different. So here's just from last night. I did this, I was putting this in today, so hopefully it turned out right. But would you like to have Zoom breakout sessions? And you see about 3/4 of the people do. It looks like they want to start out, with 5 minutes, and then going to the next slide. And I skipped some of the questions because I didn't want to have too many slides there. But how often would you like to have Zoom sessions? And you see the majority want them sometimes, not every time. So I'm thinking, okay, we'll do, weeks 3, 5, 7, and 9. Or if it's 87%, we can even talk, should we do it 80% of the time, right? Like, let's be open and think what's most fair here from a deliberative democracy perspective. And then I said, do you have any other ideas about how to make these seminars more impactful? I just started that one last night. And I got adding media and perhaps relating to life, having games for assignments, make them interactive. And there were a few suggestions like that. So I said, okay, we can do polls. How many people want to do polls? Oh, polls are a great idea. Okay, I can make some polls. I have to learn how to make a game for assignment. I told them that will be my assignment for this week. And then I can try to add media, but I told students I have some media I can throw in here and there, but I'm really interested in the media you want to share. And so that's kind of a way of people being invested, feeling like excited, like this is my seminar. I've got an idea. And hopefully that just adds to the experience and to the desire to keep learning about this material. And so, all kinds of things, but we like one time discussed theories of justice, and we explored all kinds of different things, different theories of justice, and is mercy compatible with justice? And, a lot of times, like I said, you get that, silence, like, "Oh, I don't know, I don't have thoughts, right? But those smaller groups, it's just liberating, like, oh, I can talk to this group of people. And once you've said it, right? Once you've said it, and then there's a larger group. I've already said it. Things weren't a disaster. I can say it in front of a larger group. And then to get those wheels turning and not being instructor led, right? I say, well, what is an unanswered question you still have about this topic? And I try to answer it, or I say, well, that's a hard one. I haven't figured it out yet, or let's research and come back to it, or what have you. Or maybe another student says, I've got a thought on that, which sometimes they do. And then, what is something you learned from the breakout session? I haven't done that all the time because sometimes we run out of time. But that's always interesting too, because students a lot of times will say, I learned from student X and student Y a different perspective that I had never even considered. And one of the things about these small groups is they listen to each other more than they're going to listen to me or what they read in a textbook. So it's a really good way for to create engagement in online seminars for sure. And so, there are many studies that demonstrate employers. So I give that perspective too, because we know, right, the humanities, is it worth it? And we kind of have to sell ourselves. I think the skills are very transferable, very important, but I sometimes sell it a little bit, right? Like, hey, employers are looking for employees that have effective communication skills. And look what you're doing. You are choosing to develop those skills in these seminars. You could just sit there and listen or walk away or whatever, but you're here listening. And so I'll share quotes like this. It's important for leadership. A lot of our students are studying something related to leadership, so that can kind of perk up the ears. It builds relationships, inspires trust, fosters shared vision, and you can just look at the costs and things like that just to kind of encourage. Let's build those communication and critical thinking skills, and let's show this class can help you in the workplace. It's not just, oh, I'll be a better citizen or a better person. I could be a better leader as well, right? And so the more we add, I think the more helpful it is. Um, Practice is important for building those soft skills through deliberative democracy. So the more you talk, the more you engage with people, the more you deal with sometimes controversial topics, the better you become at effective communication. We talk about active listening, creating a culture of respect, and how we can model that effective communication through those principles of deliberative democracy. So the goal is hopefully some mutual understanding, not that we all agree with each other, but, oh, well, I see where you're coming from, right? And then so I think I tend to be a conversation person more than adversarial debates, but I will ask students too, do you think conversations or debates are better? And there are pros and cons on both sides. So some people say, I like debates. It really pushes me and challenges me. But a lot of people say, I won't speak up if it's going to be adversarial. I like conversations. But we even discuss that, which one is better and why, and things like that. So those are my references. And I will turn it over to Tyra.
Perfect. Hello, everybody. Next slide. Sorry. There she goes. Thank you, Jennifer. My name is Tyra Hall-Pogar. I am the department chair in professional studies. Soft skills are a huge and important part of our curriculum. we, as Jennifer mentioned, do focus a lot on leadership, different learning styles, and promoting real world practical learning for career advancement. So what I'm going to do is quickly take time to kind of address from a little bit of a leadership standpoint, and then also what we do in professional studies, how we can try and start incorporating soft skills. So how do you take these good ideas and maybe make them something that you can use in your classroom? So next slide. So again, we've been talking about a ton of different soft skills, and I will mention this over and over again. You don't have to do all of them. We're not all good at all of them. As Ashley pointed out, I feel like sometimes when I'm designing courses, and I talk about pushing students, I realize that I'm probably also, being a little hypocritical, because I might need to push myself in certain areas as well. So I encourage my faculty to learn their soft skills as well. And I think Ashley really highlighted that at the beginning of the talk as well. We focus a lot on communication. So active listening, clear articulation, written communication. Sometimes I wonder if these are skills, like Ashley and Jennifer have both mentioned, that we are taking for granted at times, or that we still need to come back and practice, or that we need to be mindful of. I feel like as I go through different stages in my professional career in my life, I find myself circling back around to them and thinking about it. As I just went through and had a conversation about manager training, and it was the same thing, right? So again, we might be talking about education, we might be talking about incorporating this in a classroom, but again, we're trying to educate students so that they can go out into the real world, and we have that experience, so we need to share that. Collaboration, big theme that you've heard here today. I think we come back to this routinely because of the online environment. We do get asked a lot, how do you do that? But as we see the workplace shifting to online and global environments, it's important to take a step back and be mindful and ask, how can we do this? How can we do this efficiently? How can, we address different, types of people, types of learning, that type of thing. Teamwork, always, that's just like one of those terms, right? You bring it up in any education setting or, workplace setting, and you're going to have some in the room that kind of groans a little bit. We've all had bad teamwork experiences, but those are great conversation starters, like Ashley pointed out. And I think allowing the students to work through and have a positive interaction in the classroom with teamwork is really important. And as we highlighted in some of the examples, conflict resolution, right? Because that's kind of sometimes, we got to dive in and talk about the hard stuff. Why doesn't teamwork work? Or why is this hard? Or why is this, stressing me out? And sometimes that is a combination of looking at the composition, looking at yourself, looking at different roles, knowing strengths and weaknesses, those type of things. Different type of leadership skills. We talk a lot about that here at Purdue Global. We have various opportunities inside the classroom, outside of the classroom, and I think it's an important conversation. And the one thing that these ladies have exemplified in their hard work in their classroom and designing, these different assignments is adaptability, right? We're constantly changing, we're constantly striving for that. So that open-mindedness, that flexibility, that problem solving is so important to me to have that, and everyone else exemplify and have that kind of freedom to do that and experiment. That's how we move forward, right? Hopefully successfully. Next slide, Jennifer. So, under each one of those different categories, there's different ways that we can do that. I kind of put a list together of a whole bunch of different ideas. Role playing in different assignments, again, pulling from strengths and weaknesses. You can really build upon things. Ashley's example of the community garden, right? So once they got through fixing their kind of their image problem per se, correct, right? Then comes the next step, right? Like what roles could people take then to, continue the process? So it's really interesting, kind of the scaffolding that people can, we can use in the classrooms, or how we can tie different topics together or revisit conversations with students. Digital tools, we live in a we're presenting here, correct? Right. So there's so many new interactive platforms and so many different ways that we can, collaborate. And here at Purdue Global, we do try to be progressive. We try to embrace technology and use it in an appropriate and effective way. You can see the arguments happening in media and in our military and in our government and in our classrooms, and, dealing with AI and different digital tools. But again, it's about having that conversation. I love some of the assignments that we have where we're actually engaging with these different tools and then having conversations about them. I think that that's an amazing soft skill, right? To be able to converse about it. And it's a form of active learning as well, right? If we're going to kind of work around all of this. We actually use it and then in that format, and then you can actually bring in peer feedback, right? You can learn from each other. You can learn what the tools can do for you. You can learn how they can hurt you a little bit, right? Maybe hamper some of your learning and whatnot. And I think that those are really important conversations that we're going to have to continue to have. Next slide. Thank you, Jennifer. Building on that, again, what do we get out of this? What do our students get out of this? And I try to always present this in a way that both my faculty and my students understand that, we're empowering people in this process, right? I think we become better leaders, we become better at decision making. I love the point that we are now shaping the workplace and or the classroom to a place where we're facilitating rather than dictating. If we're really concerned about things like AI or student learning, it's about us being in there and having these conversations and working with our students as well. We're creating better environments, inclusive environments for everybody to learn, and hopefully hearing the feedback and making those adjustments as we go along. Hopefully we'll have new things to tell you next year as we continue to change and modify and move forward. And that's, change can be hard, but personally, but I think it is really, really important, especially in our environment, to be positive and receptive and to continue to collaborate together in order to provide the students the best learning experience. Next slide. So some of you might be listening and say, that is a great idea, but I'm not sure how to do that. One of the things that I recommend is start small. Tons and tons of ideas can come at you. Pick something small, see if it works. My background is actually in science, so this is something that I think comes naturally to me. And the ladies here are also very into research, so I think that is why you see us teaming up. We like to try different or experiment with different techniques and see if they work. I think that you have to be open to failure as well. Sometimes we have a really great idea and it might not work with a topic. It might not work with a particular group of people. It might not work, in your technological framework of your classroom or whatnot. So that's why I say start small, try something, move on to something else, work with your colleagues, try and, take little steps to build on these different practices. I do think that some of the things that we've learned is in the beginning, defined roles really help. So defined roles, parameters, that type of thing. Reflection is a great place for all of us to be at in these processes. We keep coming back to the real world examples. Why are we doing this? because it is relevant and we help the students make that connection. Their time is valuable. They want to learn, they want to be engaged, and I think that really can help. And then just being mindful and purposeful in what you are doing. Next slide. I think the last idea that we have is one kind of an example from one of our courses in professional studies. Most of the students here at Purdue Global do take this undergraduate course that we offer. It has so many practical applications and was designed as such. It's a communication and listening based course. We ask them to do a lot of real world type exercises. They do a video resume. Being on video in and of itself can be stressful and complicated. It brings in so many new real world conversations. We have a mix of students, which is fabulous because we can have conversations about different professional settings. What might be acceptable in one setting may not be such in another. It really is it can actually be somewhat of a difficult exercise, but it is a very valuable learning experience. We do a lot of case studies and analyses of different scenarios. I think that really helps people identify where their strengths and weaknesses are, where they fit in particular on a team. So maybe the next time they do run into a teamwork, we don't have as many groans. They can kind of gravitate towards maybe where they feel comfortable or where they feel that they can, assert themselves in a positive way. Sometimes we all know just that little tweak in a structure, I feel it can just change the whole dynamic and get things moving in a positive way. Lastly, we do a lot of reflection in the course, and I think it's great. We do reflection in a public space and then also in private spaces, because some of us like to share more than others, and I think that you have to respect that as well. Again, it's great. You learn from each other. That is something that I think starts early in education and should never go away. That's why we are here. That's the beauty of it. And I want our students to continue to do that. And again, I would say that the faculty grow just as much in a lot of these different reflective exercises as our students do. I famously would teach in science very controversial topics. And as a younger professor, students would always ask, right, what is your opinion? And when I was younger, I was always kind of hesitant to share mine because I would not want to influence their opinion before we really got through material. And now I really tell them, sometimes I sit on the fence with topics because as we have conversations and we reflect together, they bring to me so much more, right, as topics grow and whatnot. And I've learned to really learn from their perspectives and from their information as well. So I enjoy a lot of these personal applications as well. And that would be all that I have. So in closing, I believe we would all like to thank you and thank Rutgers University for this opportunity. We listed our information. So if you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to any of us at any time. And we hope that you're able to take some of the information that we had and share that out with your classrooms and your students and in your future learning.